streets are talking. You are now listening to The Box Out, tri-state area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it.
From NJ to BK and the world is The Box Out here on the One Podcast Network. My name is Kahlil Thomas. Joining me in just a few minutes will be Jason Cordner from Brooklyn, New York, leaving a Spike Lee party, which we'll get into later. That's why he's late. It's a good excuse, so we'll get into that a little bit later as well. NBA free agency started about 2 hours ago. A lot of news to get to, and it started actually, I believe it started last night, where it was announced that Paul George would be leaving the Clippers, not exercise his option. Now, he's not exercising the player option. He's going into free agency. He's trying to get the most money possible, which no fault of him. That's what you should do. You should go after the bag, get the money you want. He's going to meet the Clippers, the Sixers, and the Orlando Magic today. He's probably met with them already or meeting with them right now. So for Paul George, and I think Jason and I talk about this quite often, is it about the bag or is it about the championship? What do you want most? What do you value as a professional athlete? The money or the championship? Now, Paul George, 22 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists this year. You know, we're looking at a player that this year he wasn't hurt. He only missed 8 games in the regular season. For Paul George, that seems like a really, really, really low number because Paul George, when you think of Paul George, you think of a player that misses a lot of time every single year. 10, 15, 20 game stretches where you don't see Paul George. Something's going on. You could say the same about Kawhi Leonard in LA as well. They re-signed Kawhi Leonard last year to an extension. They're opening up a new building in Inglewood, so they need names. They re-signed Kawhi Leonard. We're going to talk about James Harden in a second because he re-signed with them as well tonight after free agency started today. So now it's a matter of them trying to figure out, okay, how much money are we willing to spend on Paul George? Because at this point, if they bring Paul George back, the Clippers, they're way above that NBA second apron when you talk about luxury tax and what you can do this year. And it kind of affects you going forward. It kind of affects you not just this year, but affects you going forward into year after year after. Does Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, first year of a new building, so you know he needs names, and you know he's going to make some money this year because the Intuit Center looks like a spectacular building. How far are they willing to go into that apron, that second apron, to bring back Paul George? You have Kawhi Leonard, you have James Harden, Russell Westbrook coming back. Obviously, that's not a ridiculous, crazy deal. But what are you willing to give up? The Sixers, they came into free agency with like $40+ million in salary cap space. They have the money to bring in a Paul George, to pair him with Joel Embiid, to pair him with Tyrese Maxey. So for the Sixers, they have the money to do it. The Sixers is an interesting dynamic as well because even if the Clippers bring back Paul George, I don't see the Clippers competing for a championship. It doesn't really matter. If the Sixers bring in Paul George, I see them competing for a championship right away. I think Paul George with Maxey, with Embiid, I think Tobias Harris is on the contract for next year. I think the Sixers become a favorite along with the Knicks in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks, the Sixers, the Celtics. You can say the Celtics. You can say the Pacers, possibly. So I think the Sixers, what Paul George becomes an automatic favorite in the Eastern Conference. The wild card team is the Orlando Magic. They have a lot of cap space as well. They're a younger team. I think they're a case that they're 2 years away from maybe competing to be spoken about in that conversation with the Eastern Conference and them being a big game in the Eastern Conference. If Paul George picks Orlando, that's the situation of I'm going to get the bag because they have the money. Orlando's not winning a championship this year. They're not winning a championship next year. They're not close. They're not there. It is what it is. I'm going to say it and be honest about it. Paul George going to Orlando is a bag move. Going to the Sixers is a bag plus championship. Going to the Clippers and staying with the Clippers seems very familiar. And by meaning that, you know what you're getting when you're with the Clippers if you're Paul George, right? Tyronn Lue just signed the extension. You're going to go back. Kawhi's there. Harden's coming back. Russell Westbrook's coming back. It's a familiar situation for Paul George. So do you go familiarity? Do you go with the Sixers, who, if you go to the Sixers and pair up with a Maxey and an Embiid, you become a favorite, and like teams will look at you like the Sixers could compete against the Celtics and against anybody in the Western Conference? Or do you go to Orlando, Paolo Banchero, Jalen Suggs, and say, I'm going to give my best shot with these younger guys here? I think these are questions that Paul George will probably have to ponder during these meetings. And obviously, these meetings mean a lot. These meetings are where franchises kind of pitch their franchise to a player. Think about when LeBron was a free agent years ago and how team after team after team just came in and pitched until he selected Miami, to the town to South Beach. So a lot depends on what Paul George wants. And I don't know when he's set to make a decision. I don't know when he's going to make the call. But it's going to be interesting to see what Paul George chooses. Right? Is he going to go for the money? Or is he going to go for the championship and love? Or is he going to go for, I know here. I know what's here. I know the environment. I know the owner. I know the GM. I want to stay here because I'm comfortable here. Right? I think that's the key to this. James Harden also re-signed tonight too. So now, the Clippers are looking for their big three. Their big three right now, if Paul George were to come back, would be Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden. I'm not sure that big three does anything, because you had that big three last year and you did nothing with it. So bringing back Harden, great. That sounds awesome. Doesn't really move the needle for anybody. So Paul George has a really tough decision to make right now about what he wants to do. In Knickland, and this is where I've been for the last couple of days. So on draft night during our last show, the Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges. They re-signed OG Anunoby. And now you have Isaiah Hartenstein as the big target right now. The Knicks are limited in what they could really offer Isaiah right now. And I think that's the problem. The Knicks, after signing OG, bringing in Mikal Bridges, they're kind of short on money right now. by any stretch of the imagination, the Knicks does not have the money that they should have to re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein. They could bring him back. The most they can pay Isaiah Hartenstein, I believe, is $16 million a year, $16 or $17 million a year. Other teams are very able to pay a lot more for Hartenstein's services. Now the question becomes, once again, is it the bag or is it the championship? Think about the Knicks right now. Your starting five has constituted right now would be Jalen Brunson, Bridges, OG, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson. That's your five. Now, obviously, Mitchell Robinson, we don't know if the Knicks going to try to move him. We don't know if the Knicks are going to try to keep him around. We don't really know what the situation is with Mitchell Robinson at this very moment. But that's your starting five right now. For Hartenstein, if he wants to get a championship, I'm not going to say he's going to win a championship because I think that's being kind of presumptuous. If they want to compete for a championship, if he wants to compete for a championship and be in that conversation. If Hartenstein comes back to the Knicks, I think the Knicks are in that conversation for that top four of the Eastern Conference off the top right away. I think Hartenstein will come back if he thinks of, I want to compete. I think we can do this. I think we can make some noise. More noise than they made this past year. Now, reports have OKC really looking at Isaiah Hartenstein. If you think about it, the one thing OKC was really missing was a legitimate big man in the playoffs. They obviously they had Chet Holmgren, and obviously Chet's a big man, but you need someone to kind of complement Chet. Hartenstein sounds like a good idea. I know Andre Drummond's out there, and I know he just signed. He's re-signed the Bulls, so he's going back to Chicago. But Isaiah Hartenstein seems to be the target of OKC. Bruce, what's up, man? What's going on? Bruce says, not enough money for the Knicks, small ball Knicks. Listen, at this point, the Knicks can offer what they can offer. They're going to get to the second apron as is whatever. At this point, who cares? You're going to hit that second apron. You're going to owe a ton of tax money. Fuck it. Deal with it. Do what you need to do to get Isaiah Hartenstein back onto your floor. Now, the other piece of news that came out tonight was that there might actually be another player moving from the Knicks to the Nets in the trade. The trade has not been completely finalized. The trade is going to happen. That's not a debate. The trade will go down. But it's not completely finalized. And there may be a second player besides Bogdanović going over to Brooklyn. Now, rumor has it that it could be Mitchell Robinson, which I don't understand because Nick Claxton just signed a 4-year, $100 million contract. So I'm trying to figure out how that would work. But that's the word going around. There is a second player that's going to be part of that trade coming from the Knicks over to Brooklyn. So we got to see who that second player is. If there is a second player, it might change again because at this point it was one player and like 5 draft picks. Now we're talking about 2 players and 5 draft picks, which in my mind, I said this on Thursday during the draft show, I would have felt better if they added another player from the Nets to the draft to the trade. Anybody, something. Do you have a couple of young players on the Nets? I would have brought them over and said, we want Bridges and we want someone else. A Jalen Wilson that they just signed to like a really good multi-year deal, not making any money, just someone they can put on the bench. So my dream is over. We're just going to give another player, but, that's beside the point. In other news, Chris Paul is now unemployed. Chris Paul is no longer a Golden State Warrior. His option was denied. I think it was optional. Was he? I want to look this up before I say anything. Yeah, they're waiving him. I thought so. They're waiving Chris Paul because if he was on the roster of Golden State past today, June 30th, he would have been guaranteed $30 million this upcoming season. They said, screw that. We love you, Chris. We thank you for your hard work off the bench, but we got to let you go. We got to let you go. So Chris Paul is now a free agent, unrestricted, 20th season in the league upcoming. And you look at the landscape of the NBA, and you kind of wonder, where does Chris Paul kind of fall into it now? Because Chris Paul can get you 4 to 6 games a year that you see, oh, dang, that's that Chris Paul I remember from years and years ago. But for the most part, and Bruce says in the chat here, he's expensive and injury prone. All right? Where does Chris Paul fit in this NBA landscape, this hierarchy of point guards now? His role at Golden State was probably the perfect role for him right now in his career. You come off the bench, we'll give you 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You're going to lead that backup unit, and you're going to play with these younger guys on that bench unit and kind of teach them how to play ball. I think that was the perfect role for Chris Paul. Chris Paul is not a starting point guard in the NBA anymore. I know people are going to debate that. I know people are going to say, well, he still got something left. Chris Paul is not a starting point guard in the NBA. I think last year he realized it, and he kind of took that role coming to Golden State, saying, okay, Steph's the point. I'll be back up. You really didn't see Paul and Steph play at the same time. They kind of kept them off the floor at the same time. It happened, but not a lot. Chris Paul is a backup point guard. So you want to get a backup point guard that can give you 20 minutes, probably miss 20 games, 25 games. But for the veteran aspect of it, think about the season he was with OKC when he got traded there. Did not want to be there. You can tell when the move was made, he did not want to go. But I think Chris Paul helped lift that team to that season. Chris Paul with those young players, I think kind of showed them how to play, and that kind of reflected OKC last year. OKC was business last year. I think there'll be business going forward from the lessons that Chris Paul might have taught that young team, might have taught an SGA, might have taught a Chet while, Chet was kind of hanging around hurt. Right? Chris Paul has something to offer NBA teams. Now, it's not a starting spot by any means, not even close. But he does have something to offer. So I'm curious to see what team picks him up and how they use him. Because if he comes in as a starter, bad move for whatever team picks him up. If he comes in knowing his role as a backup and the team tells him, listen, you are the backup quarterback. You're the backup point guard, backup quarterback. Your job, you're running our bench unit and you're teaching. All right. You're showing our younger point guards, our younger players, what it's like to be a pro to NBA. And I think if he can continue to come to terms with that in his current role in the NBA, I think he'll be fine. But $30 million, I'm sorry, for Chris Paul, that's effing crazy. That is effing crazy to pay Chris Paul $30 million. So that was a move that they had to make on Golden State's end. As I talked about before, James Harden, a 2-year, $70 million deal. The second year is a player option, so there's a 1+1. We'll see the Paul George and see what happens with him going forward. Remember, I said he has those 3 meetings for those 3 teams. Klay Thompson, discussions with the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Sixers. So there is a strong possibility, unless in the 11th hour Golden State comes out with an offer, Klay Thompson will no longer be a Golden State Warrior, which I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. I'm not by the least hurt by this, because sometimes it's when you're a fan of NBA and you see these teams like a Golden State with Steph and Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, Sean Livingston back from the first run. You see these kind of teams, like Kevon Looney's, and you hate to see teams like this broken up, because those teams kind of represent an era of the NBA, an era of college basketball, right? College basketball, you see guys, juniors, seniors, freshmen, sophomores now, they start leaving, they get drafted. Think of the Fab Five. After Chris Webber called that timeout against North Carolina, you knew that was it. That game was done. They're not coming back. You knew Webber was gone. You knew Rose was gone. Juwan Howard was gone. Obviously, the other 2 were going to stay there because, they, let's be honest, they were just there for the ride. But it's a feeling you get when teams break up. And you saw the Klay thing coming. Klay did not look himself. Now, Klay come off the bench, kind of like Chris Paul. Klay had to accept the fact that, listen, you're not that guy anymore. It ain't you. Come off the bench. We'll give you 25 minutes, and you know what? Go out there and shoot your heart out. But you're not starting with us no more. You're not a starting shooting guard in the NBA. You're not a starting 2 guard. He accepted the role, played well coming off the bench. I think he averaged over 20 when he started coming off the bench. But the money that he wants for what he is now, you can compare it to Chris Paul. Bruce says it. Klay's washed. Klay could be a good Hersey Hawkins. Klay could be a Del Curry at this point in his career. But that's the best you're going to get from Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's had some major injuries. Klay Thompson looks slow. Klay Thompson does not look like the same Klay Thompson from 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Obviously, you get older, and your skills start to kind of go down. Can he still shoot the lights out? Yes. And if a team uses him in that way, they'll be fine. But Klay wanting a $25, $30 million a year contract is fucking crazy. So these teams, I don't know what Dallas is going to offer. I don't know what the Lakers are going to offer. The Clippers, the Sixers. The Sixers have money. The Clippers kind of they don't have any money. The Lakers have a little bit of money, although they re-signed Max Christie. We'll get to that in a second as well. And the Mavericks, they have some money, but not a lot. The team with the most money in this group is the Sixers, but the Sixers are going to put all their eggs in the Paul George sweepstakes, which is how much are you willing to give up to get Clay and Paul George? Is Clay a backup plan for the Sixers, which sounds like a terrible backup plan, but get another shooter on a team with a maxi? I could see that. But it's going to be interesting to see what Klay Thompson gets on this market, because we know that Klay Thompson is just not Klay Thompson, not Klay Thompson. Point blank, period. In other news, Max Christie re-signs the Lakers, 4 years, $32 million. Obi Toppin, 4 years, $60 million to stay with the Pacers. In other news, and I was curious about this because this happened this morning. This was reported this morning from Bobby Marks. And if you remember, for the last, I think not this year, but for previous 3-4 seasons, there was always conversation about Miles Turner in Indiana. And it always kind of seemed like Miles Turner was on the trade market. Like every 2 weeks, you heard a rumor about Miles Turner going here, going there, moving, blah, 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 blah. He never went anywhere. But Miles Turner just always seemed to be in trade conversations and trade discussions. But ended up staying, and Usher was a major part in Indiana advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And I don't think he's going anywhere. He might pop up on, in trade conversations. But Miles Turner has always seemed to be a name that, you heard year after year after year. The new Miles Turner is Zach LaVine of the Chicago Bulls. Zach LaVine's name seems to pop up, whether it be dream trades, whether it be this is who so-and-so should get, rumors about him moving, rumors about the Lakers maybe interested in him, or him not being happy, wanting to be moved, or the Bulls not happy with him. Whatever the case may be, Zach LaVine's name continually comes up all the time. Bobby Marks reported this morning at 10:53 that there is no market for Zach LaVine. The Bulls are trying to give him away and attach a first-round pick. I've been told that by multiple people, and that is not happening. So you have a player in Zach LaVine who, when Zach LaVine's on, he's on, right? 19 points a game this year, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I want to go with his career. His career number is 20 points a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists a game, 38% from 3, 83% from the line, 46% from the field, 32 minutes a game. Only played 25 games last season. You look at a market for Zach LaVine, and you almost like Zach LaVine. And years ago, when he signed this big contract with Chicago, you thought that LaVine would be that guy in Chicago. They've been looking for this number one since Jordan left, right? Since the days of Derrick Rose, where Derrick Rose just got torn apart by Tibbs' shitty rotations in Chicago. So probably since Derrick Rose, they've been looking for that one. And Zach LaVine was their one. That's what they thought. They thought Zach LaVine was their number one guy. But it turns out that Zach LaVine became injury prone. And you look for, in a number one, you look for certain intangibles in a number one option on a guy, right? You're looking for the guy. And there's certain things you're looking for in that guy. And as time went on, even though LaVine's scoring 50 points a game, putting down some spectacular dunks, hitting big game winners, right? Something was missing. Like there were intangibles that were missing from Zach LaVine. And maybe not his game, but maybe his attitude, maybe his demeanor. Something was missing. And I think what was missing was the fact that Zach LaVine is not a winner. Zach LaVine does not give off winner vibes. Right? Zach LaVine gives off, give me the ball, I'm going to get mine. Y'all do y'all thing. I'm good. So not only is Zach LaVine not a winner, but he's injury prone. Oh, there's Bruce right there. Zach LaVine injury scrap right now. Injury prone and a hothead. That's essentially what it is. That's why the market's so light on Zach LaVine right now. No one wants Zach LaVine. And it's weird that a 20-point a game two guard who's capable of just dropping 50 when he wants to drop 50, or when the opportunity is there for him to drop 50, that no one seems to want him. And that the market is just like, yeah, you know what? We're good. We're good with that. You hold on to that. Even when the Bulls say, hey, you can take him, we'll give you a number one pick too. Like, hey, here's a first round pick and Zach LaVine. Because at the end of the day, the first round draft pick is more valuable than Zach LaVine. Teams would kill their mother for a first round draft pick, especially Chicago Bull draft pick, because you know it's going to be a lottery pick for the next few years. And teams want no part of that. That's the weird part. Teams are like, we're good. No, we don't. We want no part of that shit. We're straight. So the fact that Zach LaVine can't move anywhere is, one, hilarious, and two, it's sad considering what we thought. And I was one of those guys who thought Zach LaVine would be that guy in Chicago. I'm like, Zach LaVine's that's their one. Bring someone in, build around Zach LaVine. This was about 3-4 years ago. And this is where we are now. The Bulls want to move him, and the Bulls can't get rid of him quick enough. And they're just stuck with him. According to Woj at 8:14, about 13 minutes ago, Philadelphia 76ers are strong front runners to sign Paul George on a free agent deal after his agent informed the Clippers that he is unlikely to return there. George was seeking a 4-year deal, but the Clippers had wanted to give him a 3-year deal, similar to the structure of Kawhi Leonard's contract structure. The Sixers contingent is set to meet with George in California tonight. So right now, it seems as if the Sixers are the front runners. So George is looking at it as, I can get paid and be a contender. Because I can see the Sixers, like I said, the Sixers with Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George automatically is in that conversation for that top 4, top 5 in the Eastern Conference. Now, obviously, chemistry has been developed. We don't know how they're going to play together, if they're going to play well together or not, whatever the case may be. But Paul George look at it like, I can get my money and compete for a championship. That works. I think he knew the Clippers were like, you know what? I think we're done. According to Woj as well, and this is from Woj, from his mouth, when he signed Kawhi to that deal last season, they never told Paul George about it. Paul George found out about it when the rest of the world found out about it. Sorry, this is from Brian Windhorst. The Clippers' actions over the season and their actions here in free agency indicate they're ready to move on from Paul George. So essentially, they made all these moves and said, don't tell Paul. Almost like they knew, like, yeah, Paul's just Paul's here. Paul's gone. It almost seemed like they knew he was going to leave. So they didn't discuss anything with him because they're like, you're gonna duck anyway. Who cares? It is what it is. The Kawhi PG era was good for doctors' chiropractic in LA. That is very true. Bruce also says that Embiid injury prone too. He is, but this gives Philly more, and obviously Paul George is injury prone as well. So it's a risk. But this also gives him, like, if Embiid goes down, you got Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. And Paul George proved this year that he could play 70-plus games. He played 76 games this year. I'm like, that right there, I think maybe upped his value, because I think that was the one sticking point for a lot of teams in free agency. Can Paul George play more than 60 games this season? He played 76. So is that a sign that he might have figured out his health? He might have changed what he's eating. He might have changed his stretching routine. He did something to make himself better this season to play 76 games. So It's a risk because you're getting Paul George, and Paul George can either play 76 games or miss 26 games. And B's going to get hurt. Max is going to play all 82 and then some. So the Sixers is taking that money and they're putting that money down on red right now and risking it all. But if you're the Sixers, you don't got many other options right now. Right? That series against the Knicks, that was a series that they should have won in hindsight. That was a winnable series. And they couldn't get the job done. You got to push your chips to the table now and say, we got to go all in because this window's going to close. And eventually, we got to pay Tyrese Maxey his money. So let's figure this shit out now because that window's going to close and close really, really quickly. All right, so about halfway through, 30-second break. We'll come back, talk more free agency, and we'll get into WNBA news as the season continues at the Commissioner's Cup on Tuesday. So we'll be back in 30 seconds here on the Box Out. And we are back here on the Box Out. Kahlil Thomas, Jason Corder making his way in a few minutes. Big news today also in Detroit. JB Bickerstaff, the former coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who was scapegoated and fired. He is set to become the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons, a franchise that is snake-bitten. Listen, Trajan Langdon came in, new president of operations. They let Monty Williams go, owes him like $60 million. But when you have a new president of operations, you have a new GM, they want to bring their own guys in. The old administration brought in Monty Williams. Monty Williams did not want that job. You can tell. The offer is too great. If someone makes you a ridiculous offer, like think about Django and Leo, right? They got his attention, right? They got his attention. And now he became intrigued and got his attention. I think that was the order that Leo did when Django showed up. So Monty didn't want the job. Monty looked unhappy as hell last year. Obviously, he had a shitty team that lost 20 games in a row. But he looked very, 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 very unhappy. You bring in JB Bickerstaff, who did really well in Cleveland. I still think to this point that his firing had to do with Donovan Mitchell not liking him, not liking his coaching style, and the Cavaliers doing everything they could to get Mitchell to sign his extension. So I think that's why Bickerstaff was kind of scapegoated out of Cleveland. Not anything he did, but I think he was scapegoated because Mitchell probably didn't like him, and Cleveland's going to appease Donovan Mitchell, who they want to keep around. So that was the deal. So there was also a trade on Friday, and I've got to find it. And it included Atlanta. Where is this trade? I know it happened Friday night because I was out and I was having a couple drinks. And it came up on my phone. I was like, whoa. And that tequila hit me. I'm like, did I read that right? The Hawks traded DeJounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans for Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and 2 first-round picks. The Lakers' 2025 pick and the 2027 pick of either Milwaukee or New Orleans, depending on who is the lesser of the 2 picks. We talked about this on Thursday during the draft, how Atlanta I was under the impression Atlanta might move away from Trae Young. Because in my head, I think Trae Young's kind of reached his apex with the team. I think his apex, really, to be blunt, was the playoff series against the Knicks a couple years ago. And I think that's it. I think that was going to be the best Trae Young we're going to see. And now you have a player whose numbers are going down. His usage rate's gone a little up. His assist numbers have gone down. And he's just jacking up shots from half court, essentially. And playing with a team that seems like his teammates don't really like him. Trae Young does not seem like a liked player, a liked teammate. my thought was give the team to Murray and let Murray become the star of the team. And you still have other players around like Clint Capella, and I know they're gonna resign Sadiq Bey, but I thought Sadiq Bey would be a good base to start around. And with a good coach like Quinn Snyder, but obviously that did not happen. So this is Murray in New Orleans. That's gonna be formidable with Zion, Murray, CJ McCollum, Ingram. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how that all works out, because that's a lot of mouths to feed down in New Orleans. A lot of guys who want the ball, a lot of guys who want to score. So you got to keep them fed. How are you going to keep them fed? Who's going to take lesser? That's going to be the question for New Orleans going forward. Who's going to take lesser of shots? Who's going to take the lesser of the offense in that team? It'll probably end up being CJ McCollum. I would assume that one. Maybe not, but we'll see. Bruce, you said it. I'm checking real quick because I don't want to say it out loud. I think Bruce in the chat said Chris Paul's going to Spurs. Is that your thought, or is that something you heard? Because if he goes to Spurs, I don't know what that does. I'm very confused on that rationale. If Chris Paul becomes a San Antonio Spur, and what is he doing there besides an assistant coaching pop? That's fact. Okay. Chris Paul, go to the Spurs. Don't really know why the hell you're doing it, but he's doing it. I'm not gonna fault you. I'm looking real quick. Besides that right there, that news right there. It's reported. I mean, listen, we'll see if it's true or not. But Chris Paul Spur. All right. Makes no sense to me. I don't understand that logic of going to the Spurs. That's just me. We'll get more into that once we get that certified. I want to go back to the draft because obviously on Thursday we went off the air at pick number 10. And we did not have a show on Friday for the second round because why would we? What's the point of that? And something very I want to be positive about it, but it's hard for me to be positive about it. Bronny James' name was popping up. I know Jason and I both talked about Bronny James and how Bronny James is not a first-round pick, so we were not going to see him on Thursday. Bronny James is barely a second-round pick. We're probably going to see him second round. I did not want to see him go to the Lakers. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. I was thinking more like undrafted, goes free, go to Lakers, play with his dad, blah, blah, blah. And then pick number 55 happened, and the Lakers were picking 55. They ended up drafting and eventually signing Bronny James, number 55, goes to Lakers. And, Ryan Russillo of The Ringer said that, if you look at it, even the coldest of cold hearts could look at this and go, you know what? LeBron is going to play with his son. That's kind of cool, right? That was the plan. LeBron really wanted to play with his son. LeBron wanted to play with Bronny. Awesome. Great job. Good shit. And then he also made a point how ESPN decided to lecture America about nepotism and how nepotism is all over the NBA and all over pro sports. And he's not wrong. I'm a Met fan. Fred Wilpon is the owner. His son Jeff is a complete and utter moron, but he was CEO of the team. Right? The Yankees. The Steinbrenner family is all over the place in that franchise. All right? Nepotism is part of sports. If you look at hockey, the Arizona Coyotes, before they moved to Utah, there was a whole article the other day about how the owner of the team's son, who has no experience in anything, pretty much ran the team. Right? Nepotism is part of life. It is what it is. If I had a business, I would hire I don't know if I hire my daughter. My daughter's kind of mean to me lately, so I'm not really sure about that. I'm not sure if I'd hire her because she's been kind of an asshole to me as of late, but beside the point. I would think about hiring my kids, right? Because it'll get their foot in the door and maybe I could pass something on to them, right? When it's my time to go, They'll have the company, they'll have the business, blah, 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 whatever. But this just felt weird to me. This felt different to me. This was just bigger than the nepotism. This was a player in LeBron James who has clout, who has influence, who has star power on a team where he just decided not to exercise his player option for next season. And who wants him to come back? And a man who used that, I believe, to his advantage to go, hey, I want to come back here. But part of me coming back here is going to be you drafting my son. You're getting my son in here to play, and you're going to draft him. I'm not asking you to draft him first round, 17 overall. But I am asking you to draft him and bring him in. At 55, it made sense. 55 is a high-ass draft number in the NBA. So, 55 is not a major pick. But LeBron flexed and got his son on the team with him. His son, who won, was good in high school. I'm not going to say phenomenal. He was not his father in high school by any means. Who, before he started his college career at University of Southern California, had a cardiac arrest and had surgery to fix his heart. Did not come back until about December, went on to average 4 points a game, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists a game. Entered his name into a draft that, to my knowledge, I'm 41 years old. I've been following the NBA draft since I was about, I will say, 8 years old when I really started watching it and seeing Ernie Johnson on TNT, and that was 1991. I cannot remember a draft in the 33 years of me watching a draft and knowing what's going on, not just watching, but knowing. A draft has the 2024 NBA draft. He put his name in, did great at the combine. People are hyped about Bronny James at the combine. Oh, great performance. Meanwhile, you're playing against some of the weakest competition in any draft combine in recent history because his draft sucks. The top picks didn't participate in the combine because they knew they were top picks anyway. So you didn't play against the best. So you were able to compete in those 5-on-5 scrimmages and do well against players who were not up to snuff anywhere, who were just hoping to get invited to the draft or even hope to get drafted. And then your dad's agent friends who represent you said, you're only going to work out for 3 teams. The Lakers, the Suns, and I believe there was a third team. I can't remember not the third team off the top of my head. You're only going to work out for 3 teams. We're not even going to open it up to everybody. And there were rumors that if Bronny was drafted by another team besides the Lakers, his agents went around saying he's not going to go to you. He'll go to Italy. That's a rumor. I'm not sure if it's true. I'm not going to say it's true. That's just a rumor that kind of spread during the week about the Bronny James experience. This is where we are. His pops got him the job. My pops got me a job with him. Every summer, I would go work with my dad. Could not stand that job, but I knew every summer I had a job. My dad's like, my son's going to be home for college this summer, so he needs a job. I got a job with my dad. Not saying it's a bad thing, right? If you could do it, do it. But don't sit here. If you're LeBron, if you're the Lakers, don't sit here and make this out to be this feel-good story and it's, LeBron is a great player and, we're just happy to have him and we're lucky to have him. Don't sit here and tell me that shit because that's bullshit. It is. Don't tell me that Bronny James is this missing link. Bronny James is a great player that we're just thankful that he fell to us at number 55. No, LeBron pulled them strings and said, if you want me in LA next year, you better get my son. And if you don't believe that, you're gullible. If you don't believe that, you are an idiot. Point blank, period. LeBron pulled them strings. LeBron got his son. And you know what? Cool. Good luck to you. Because now all the eyes are going to be on you and your father. Because Bronny James is not making that Laker roster out of preseason. He's going to go to the G League. If he stays on that roster after training camp, after preseason, LeBron made him stay on that roster. Because Bronny James is not ready for the NBA. I'm sorry. I know it's a feel-good story, and everyone's like, oh, man, great. No. Bronny James is not ready for the NBA. Will he be eventually? Maybe. Probably. Possibly. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he does well. I hope that Bronny James is an all-star one day. But right now, he has showed me nothing that he is ready for the NBA. He's a G League player who needs to get his game up and get his mind right, and then maybe eventually work into the NBA. But right now, not even close. So, Godspeed, Bronny James. Godspeed, LeBron James. LeBron wants to resign with the Lakers. They said he's willing to take less money if they're able to get a significant player. If they're not able to, he wants the full boat. LeBron wants all of his money if they cannot pick up a significant player. What player that is, I don't know. Because after you get past Paul George, there's kind of a drop-off a little bit when you get on the NBA free agency. And essentially, everybody kind of went into the player options. So, I don't know what significant player LeBron's looking for, but he wants one. He's not happy. D'Angelo Russell opted into his player option, so that money is still there. He ain't going nowhere. So unless they move D'Angelo Russell and bring someone else in, there's nothing out there. So LeBron's going to take up the salary cap, and we're going to be stuck in the situation with the Lakers where they get Bronny James. They picked up, oh my God, a player who name I can't remember. I'll look this up real quick. In the draft, at 17, I got to look this up really quick because I was surprised that he fell that far and they got him. I was like, damn it. Connect from Tennessee, who's a shooter. Like, he can shoot from anywhere in the court, which is something the Lakers really need and haven't had since LeBron got to LA. So if he's as good as I think he is from an SEC team in Tennessee, that could be a big pick at 17 for the Lakers. But besides that, they're not getting nobody else. That is what it is. I will say this. I did not watch the remainder of the draft after we went off the air. I know the Knicks picked a French guy, 25. They traded Keyshawn George, who I love from Miami. They traded him as part of a trade, so he's not going to be there. That is either a stash pick for the Knicks from France, or he's going to get some. I don't know. At 20, it's 25. Like, what are we doing at 25, really? Like, after the moves they made that night, I did like, who's on the board? Best the next available guy. That guy? Okay, let's get him. And I think that's where they were at pick 25 in the NBA draft. Whew, okay. I'm looking up. I'm going to do one more quick peek before I go about free agency, if anyone popped up or popped around. Let's see. Nope, we saw Paul George as the last story. Okay, so big story so far tonight. Paul George likely to go to Philadelphia. James Harden re-signs with the Clippers. Andre Drummond is going. Sorry, I said this completely wrong. I think I read it wrong. Andre Drummond is going to the Sixers. I read that completely wrong a few minutes ago. So Andre Drummond is going to the Sixers. 2 years, $10 million. So that could be interesting too, because now you have, if Andre Drummond is not Joel Embiid, but if Joel Embiid gets hurt, Andre Drummond could be a serviceable starting center that can grab rebounds. Because let's be honest, that's all Andre Drummond can do is grab rebounds. And that's it. I think that's the only other big news tonight. So we'll stay posted. We'll keep our eyes on it. If anything crazy happens during the week, because we're not supposed to do a show, it's 4th of July week. we're taking a week off, celebrate 4th of July. We've had 2 shows in a week, which we haven't done in a while. So, Valanciunas to the Wizards. That sounds like a shit situation for him. So Valanciunas leaves the Pelicans, goes to the Wizards, which is purgatory for anybody who goes there, and that's where careers going to die, man. It's like Tupelo, Mississippi, or Ocean's 13. So this career's going to die. It's crazy. If anything pops up, anything crazy happens this week, we will be on here on YouTube. Emergency podcast will be on this week if anything happens crazy. If the Knicks magically re-signs Isaiah Hartenstein, we will be on. We will just hop on just for the hell of it and just gloat and just party our ass off because Isaiah Hartenstein is a Knick again. But we're going to get all – yep. Valanciunas going to get all them Jordan Poole bricks. God bless Jordan Poole. Getting punched in the face is the worst thing that happens in his career. Listen, Bruce, I'm not getting stuck into a WNBA conversation tonight. No, I'm confident. I'm finally over the Commissioner's Cup loss. The Liberty's got it. They got it under control. I'm confident. I'm going to keep telling myself that over and over again. All right. So Jason, he couldn't make it. Obviously, he was leaving Spike Lee's, I think it was a Do the Right Thing block party, 30th anniversary in Brooklyn. He couldn't make it home in time, so he got stuck because, New York City subways on a Sunday, every train known to man is down except like 2. So he couldn't make it back in time. So Jason, hope you had fun. Wish I was out there. This is why I need to live in New York. I miss living in New York. Mainly Brooklyn. I gotta live in Brooklyn. So Jason will be back. We're taking a week off, 4th of July weekend. Have a great 4th of July week. Have a great weekend. Our next show will be Monday, July 8th, recapping all the free agency news, WNBA news, anything that happens, and a special feature just for the summer shows because, summer shows are very, very, very difficult because nothing's going on. So a special feature that we're going to have on our next show to get us through this tough summer of just nothing, because after this week, the NBA kind of just goes dormant and no one gives a shit until about September. So July 8th, that's a Monday. That's our next show here on the One Podcast Network. Thank you so much for watching. See ya. No, July 8th, Bruce. July 8th, we'll be back. Taking a week off. That's all. All right. So for Jason, I'm Kahlil. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on July 8th. Have a great 4th of July. Peace.
This has been The Box Out with Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Subscribe now for the best tri-state area basketball talk.